आप सुन रहे हैं ग्राउंड ब्रेकिंग कम्युनिटी स्ट्रीम।
Hi, this is Q live and direct from Delhi. I hope you all are having a good time and taking care of your health. If you like this podcast and have some feedback for me, you can write me a mail mentioned in the podcast description and maybe share it with someone you think would like. Stay tuned, and this one is a Women's Day special. For this episode, we have Dhruti Soni, aka Minimal Cacti. She's a co founder of Women in Design India, an independent designer and a creative consultant, works around UX, UI, packaging design, and industrial design. We'll be taking a deep dive into her personal and professional journey of becoming a designer. Welcome to the show, Dhuti. How's it going?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's going good. How are you?
Yeah, it's going fine. It's a Sunday morning. How's it going for you? How was your Saturday?
It was hectic. I was actually traveling back home, but I'm glad to kind of have some stability now and be home for a long time.
Yeah, you definitely had some hectic past couple of weeks, right? You just
Yes.
got married. Like, how was it? How did it go? Must be
Good,
very
good.
intense.
No, it's actually quite chill now.
Awesome,
So it's
awesome.
nice.
Let's just start with the schooling. I mean, we had a conversation where you talked about your school and how amazing it was. So if I'm not wrong, you studied at Brunei. I don't know if I'm
Brunei,
pronouncing it right. Yep.
yeah, Brunei, yeah.
So yeah, tell me a bit about your schooling and how was it?
It was actually kind of fun. So Brunei is an island. It's a small island off the coast of Malaysia, and the entire island just has one mall. And my house was actually 100 kilometers away from my school, so I was kind of staying in the boarding house itself. But what that really pushed me to do was we each had to have a couple of extracurricular activities after school that we had to kind of delve into, and I always made sure to take something adventurous. So we constantly went on hikes. I tried to do a lot of different things. Like I was in the school orchestra group. I was playing the violin, but yeah. So it was kind of fun. So that always kind of taught me work-life balance, where after 5 we all had to be out for 3 hours at least doing something that is not educational, like academic. Sorry, it's educational, it's not academic. But yeah, so that was that. And Brunei also, I think one thing that I've taken away from Brunei was the fact that we had a course in school which was called design and technology. So that entered me into product design. And my journey into product design and industrial design is really funny because we had a workshop class when we were in 8th grade. So that's Indian 7th. And there was this guy, he was sanding some bamboo on the circular rotational sander, and his nail went through and it just sanded his whole finger, well, the tip of his finger. For 2 years I was like, I'm not taking design. I moved to art. I quit product design for 2 years, and then yeah, in the end I kind of couldn't stay away, so I kind of came back to product design, did it for my A levels, and then continued to do so ever since.
Wow, definitely sounds way better than my schooling for sure. I mean, what were you playing with the orchestra team?
So
What
I was
instrument?
playing the violin. I
Yeah,
do not play that anymore.
yeah. Wow,
But
that's
yeah.
crazy. I saw this in your on your website that you got a Duke of Edinburgh award for 3 years, 3 continuous years. You want to talk us through that? What's it about?
Yeah. So the Duke of Edinburgh Award is actually a physical kind of award that you go through, where you have to, the first award, which is bronze, you go through a hike which is probably like 2-3 days. The second one is a hike that you go through for a couple of longer days, like probably 4 to 5 days. And the last one is gold, which is the highest level. I think that, I don't know if that's the highest, but that's the highest that I've achieved, gold. For that, we actually went to, all of these were again placed in Brunei. And for the gold one, we actually went to Spiti Valley back in 2015, and we had to build a solar bath for the monks in the Himalayas, as well as just kind of do a hike to the top and then come back down. So that's what that is. So
Wow. And you won it for 3 consecutive years.
yeah, so it's kind of something that you earn. We have a group of people, and you have to go through rigorous training. So we had to train for the hike for at least a whole semester. And not joking when I tell you that people were crying on the day before the hike, and they were like, "Dude, I want to drop out." I was one of them, but then we went through.
Why? Because
So,
of the
yeah.
pressure they had?
Yeah, it's really tough because you kind of have to. I mean, you're kids first of all, like you're like high school kids, and the professors would really train us in a way which is kind of rough, because we had to be prepared for whatever experiences may kind of be faced at the top. So yeah,
So,
but that was fun.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely sounds adventurous. I've never been to Spiti Valley, but it's a beautiful place. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, was it the part of the task where you had to kind of build a solar place for a monk?
Yeah. So we
So how
have to
did you
do.
plan it? Like, did you have the whole brief or the whole process? How were you gonna do that?
Yeah, so we had to kind of prepare ourselves physically before. One thing that I missed out on is throughout, like, for example, your hike is just one part of it. Throughout the whole year, what you have to do is you have to log in a couple of hours for service, skill, and physical. So you have to log a couple of hours for physical service, physical exercise or endurance. And that is again kind of checked continuously. You've got to do a skill. So I was doing the violin back then. You've got to do a service. So you have to kind of go do some sort of service to the community for a couple of hours, which kind of tally up at the end of the year. And then at the end, that's when you're eligible to actually do the final hike, which is kind of
Yeah.
ending. But yeah. And as for the solar bath, that was actually fun. We had to kind of make our own bricks from concrete. We had to kind of dig our own sand, mix it, make our own concrete, convert that into bricks, carry it from one side to the other, and then actually start putting everything together. We did have help from locals who were building, so they would kind of guide us and tell us what we had to do, but everything from start to finish, we were the ones who had to make. It wasn't allowed for anyone like who was experienced to do it. So of course it was a team, so everyone who was part of it and who were eligible at the end of the year could kind of go and do that. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like an intensive process for sure. Yeah. Again, this definitely also sounds like that you got a chance to get your hands dirty very early before even into diving into design. While you were doing this, you were studying at Brunei. So you were
Yes.
traveling to India and going back to your school.
No, so we are you talking about the solar bath in
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
No, so that is a 2-month thing. So
Okay.
we came here for a while, and then we just did it, and then we kind of went back.
Awesome. So then what made you decide that, okay, I'm gonna study industrial design, or I want to study design, as again, as you mentioned that you maybe didn't have a really good experience initially as a school kid. While do you think that you had enough awareness about design that you wanted to study design?
I definitely think so. I think in high school we had A levels, which is 12th and 13th. That's where we were actually taught things about circular design and how the world, like there was a video, the name has slipped my mind, but they really kept showing us those books. They kept showing us all the concepts of design. Like we had this term where you had to learn whenever you're designing a product. I still see it in my old projects, where you have to make sure the product passes functionality, ergonomics, all those things. And we were actually taught the human body scale and all as well. So I think it was a good base for product design, and that's all I knew at that point in time. So that's why I kind of did know that I wanted to go into design, but I wasn't so sure I wanted to go into industrial design. I did take product design for a while, and for me back then, product design was a lot about building and making things. We had a workshop, so I would kind of go inside, and just create things. So like we had to make a chair for one of our years, like 12th, and for 13th you were open to do whatever, where I kind of made a room divider, which, funny story, actually got sold at the end of the year, and that was my first ever purchase. First
Wow.
ever kind of product that was actually in the market and
You,
sold.
yeah, do you want to talk about it? About the
Yeah,
product?
sure. Yeah. So I'll actually show you the product. I'll send you a picture later. And what it was a room divider. And I really wanted to, I think ever since then, I've always created products that are really funky, not too normal.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the chair, if you see the chair, I'll share a picture. Um, it was completely metallic. I had to weld everything together and then kind of spray paint it and grind everything to shape. And then on top of that, what I did was I drilled on wood for support. And then a lot of the products that I used to make were about multifunctionality. So the chair could be a seating chair with a long back, which would kind of be a reading chair. It had a library right behind it, and it had storage underneath where you're sitting. And if you flip it, it becomes a lounge chair where the library is on the bottom and the storage is on the back. And so, it kind of had two different positions that you could use it in. It had a library, it had a lot of different things. So I thought, I don't know, I think multifunctionality and just kind of fitting a lot of things into one
Wow.
was my jam back then.
I mean, you mentioned multiple manufacturing processes for sure, like welding and working around wood. So that's
Yeah.
definitely intriguing. I'll try to drop a link in the description of the product you're mentioning.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, this sounds like you had your foundation years pretty early, even before starting your college. So that must have been an advantage for sure. I mean, when you started your foundation of industrial design, how was it? I mean, definitely it was a maybe a piece of cake for you to get into this design school.
Yeah. So I think at that point in time, I wasn't aware that you needed to pass exams to go to a design school. I certainly, I'm lucky enough to say that I didn't have to when I went to my first, like, your first year. All I had to show was my portfolio. And probably because I was still in Brunei and the university that I chose was in India, I couldn't travel back because I had my final year exams, etc. So I think my portfolio did well enough for me and I was just able to get into that because I know in my first year everyone would be like, oh, how did you answer this question? I don't know what questions you guys are talking about. But
Awesome.
yeah.
So how was your foundation years of when you started studying industrial design?
I mean, it was really different. I know that we had to go through a lot of the first semester, at least. I'm sure you're aware of it as well. Was just lines, and that was really different. And we had to make all these shapes, cuboids, and all of those things out of paper. And I remember thinking like, I've done product design. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I definitely know the worth of it now. Like, I understand what those kind of trained us for. And yeah, it was a different type of introduction, I would say. And I think I understand why. So yeah, but it was interesting. It was fun.
Yeah, and so you were so while you were studying this, you had a clear idea that what products you want to make, or what kind of projects you want to be involved in.
Um, so I've always been someone who needs change. So I couldn't be making just one thing and then sticking to it. So I think that's what I liked about industrial design. It's so big. It's so varied. You can be creating a chair one day, and then you can be creating, like, I don't know, a speaker the next. And that was what kind of called me to it. Also, of course, the fact that I was kind of making things constantly with my hands. But I think a lot of my definition again came from high school. So a lot of the projects I wanted to constantly do were for the house itself. So like furniture or interior products or decorative products, which were kind of commercialized for home systems, not like mass produced products like speakers and all, just home goods. So that was something that I was really into back then. And I think furniture will definitely be something that I'm always going to be into, like to be able to create something for the house itself. So that was one thing that I was kind of in the direction for then.
Oh,
Yep.
all right. And what got changed later? I mean, you went into different, I think, experience design, and we'll be, of course, gonna talk about women in design. So how did you move forward while you were kind of shifting yourself from maybe, at least this is how I look, that you shifted from maybe some physical products to more digital and packaging based products. What was the process while you were shifting from one phase to another?
Mm. Um, so one thing I knew for a fact when we were in, so my college experience was, of course, broken down into two different universities. The first half was in Pune, and then the second half was in Delhi. Um, and up until Pune, all that I'd learned was hardcore product and industrial design. And I knew that I did love making presentations. So when I'm talking about presentations, I'm talking about the visual aspects of it, like designing graphically, how things would go, where would it go, what would be the storyline of my own product, right? So I like both aspects of it, physically creating it and then kind of digitally telling the story of it. And when I shifted to Delhi, I was kind of exposed to a lot more than just product design. I was exposed to service design, retail design, UI, UX, and we were forced to do multiple different projects within the same semester, and it couldn't just be product design. And I think in Pune, within my second year, a lot of things had changed, and there were more different, like a few different disciplines kind of being introduced to students itself. I'm not sure if that was the case beforehand as well,
Yeah.
but that kind of introduced me to a different realm of design. And from there, I think the pivoting point was my graduate internship, graduate thesis, which was with Hike One in Netherlands. And that's where I was kind of doing a interaction design internship with Lodovico Marchesini. Pretty cool thing. I've always followed him on Instagram, and I absolutely loved his illustrations and his style. And then I actually applied to Hike One, having no idea that he was, a designer there. And what turned out was he became my mentor throughout my internship, and he was kind of guiding me and directing me into what it means to become a professional, like a professional in the industry as an interaction designer. And I think that really kind of guided my career to interaction design, to digital interfaces. And that's where I've been ever since.
Wow, awesome. And you went to Netherlands to pursue this internship?
Sadly, no. So I was introduced to remote working before it was cool.
Nice.
So I was doing it remotely here, and that really kind of was tough, but it was also interesting at the same time because I didn't know that I could do everything from home, and I think again that leads to me becoming an independent designer later on in my career. So that kind of built a good base, making me understand all the different softwares, the ways we can collaborate remotely without having to actually be in person. Because I think to us, design was a lot about going to places and experiencing things that users would, especially for product design. If you're designing for, say, like a different location, like someone in like a socially, like I don't know, in let's say Gujarat, how there's like all these people designing for the minorities. So I think for that's what I kind of had always imagined. I would always go out, do my research and talk to people. But then this was completely different. It was a completely online thing. And it introduced me to the world that could be. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So you also spent some time working at Cameline,
Yeah, Camlin.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it Camel or Camly?
Camlin. So
Camlin.
the stationery brand, huh? Coco
Yeah,
Camlin.
yeah. I've seen that brand since I was a kid,
Yeah.
right? Using crayons and stuff. So how was that experience?
That was really exciting, especially as a start, like especially starting out as a product designer. Back then that was before my graduate internship, so I wasn't really into UI UX then. And what was cool about that for me was the fact that I was using their products since childhood, and now I get to kind of go inside. Like I felt like I was going inside a new world and like understanding how things were actually made and all. And that was really interesting. It was also a huge eye opener in terms of when you're in design school, you create without boundaries. When you're in the industry, there's so many boundaries. It can get a bit daunting to kind of unleash your creativity to its full potential. So I think that was a challenge that I had to kind of learn then, because I was always used to creating crazy stuff. And then when I was there, I had to kind of make sure that, your injection mold couldn't be more than 2 rupees or whatever. Like, that was all those like really unexpected kind of challenges that threw me off.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. I continued to design that, and I was the only product designer and a lot of like different engineers. So that was a challenge in itself, because I think what we've been taught in terms of design and what design kind of goes out into the industry is slightly different. Maybe because it was more commercial and not so much as a studio. And yeah, I actually created this geometry set, which I found the problem to myself, and I was just designing it on the side along with my other projects. And what I ended up getting the opportunity to do was talk to the managing director, present my idea to him, and he kind of made me leave all my files there. So I'm not sure if they've actually acted up upon it, but that was cool to me to be able to present to someone who is in the marketing team, who is, in some position. So I understood how to kind of present in the real world.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I'm just curious that were you getting Camlin projects products at Brunei?
No, but I would keep coming to India for summers.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you've been seeing these products since you were a kid. So yeah, I mean, yeah, talking about traveling, I think you also mentioned that you've been traveling a lot all your life with your family, and like how has this experience maybe have churned you out into a professional you are right now? So yeah, I mean, let's just talk about your journey where you are moving houses maybe, or traveling from one place to another.
Mhm. I think I've actually introspected this a lot, and probably in the first few years of design. But one thing I realized was like, so what I am is basically, it's called a third culture kid, a TCK, and what they are like, they're just people who've kind of grown up in multiple different, cultures that are excluding their own. And I was actually raised in Singapore, Bangkok, Brunei, and then I finally moved back to India. uh initially it was really tough to kind of get up and leave after you've finally made some friends. For someone who's an introvert like I am, it was tough. But then it kind of forced me to be open. It forced me to kind of do things outside my comfort zone, and I think that's become a huge part of who I am now. And I remember I would always kind of be observing things, and just looking at things around you and kind of observing. And it was interesting because something that was so so, I would say, at home to people in Singapore was so out of the out of the question for people in Bangkok or like Brunei. And those are extremely different cultures itself compared to our own as well. So it also helped me kind of make sure that I can readjust and
Yeah.
recalibrate, after being somewhere, and then suddenly immerse myself in another culture and be like, okay, no, now I'm a part of you guys. So yeah, so I think it's really translated well into design, where I can shift from one project to the other, like recalibrate. But yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure it has given you a lot of wisdom for sure, right? Being in different culture, meeting different people from different nationalities, maybe. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, definitely, it must have helped you into your design process for sure, and even your
Yep.
approach, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think one thing that I've learned a lot was to make sure that you're sensitive to each and every culture when you're designing things, because you're not only going to like, whatever you create is not going to just be a part of one. So it's essential that you kind of look broadly as well, globally, and just make sure that something that might be okay for one culture may not be for the other, like that's something that we need to make sure.
Especially with a country like India, I think that you have to consider a lot of these hard pointers.
A lot of people. Yep.
Yep. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, let's start with your woman in design journey. While you were creating it, what was the idea behind what maybe moved you to start this initiative? Yeah, let's just dive through to this journey of what maybe made you to start Women in Design India.
My journey into starting Women in Design was actually really candid. there was no planning, no business plan, nothing. It was all about like something that I'd personally experienced. So taking it back to after just graduating, being in the industry, not knowing anyone, like it was tough. Especially I was also freelancing. Initially, like right after university, right after my graduate thesis, I started freelancing. Um, Thankfully, because my dad was really supportive of it, and he was like, if this is what you want to do, then go for it. Don't like go into a 9 to 5. And being an independent designer, it does get like lonely because you're not working with a team, and you don't have a mentor who is like constantly guiding you in your initial stages, etc. So what I would do is really just reach out to. I was really into Instagram since I would say 2015. I was just posting my work on there, and then I deleted everything, and then I started again later. But I kind of felt that sense of community there itself anyways, but it was a very global community. There weren't many like Indian people or Indian designers that I knew and followed there were a couple that I really looked up to, but they were also still limited to where I was studying. So that circle was still small, but I was able to really find all these cool designers online, and I would just kind of ask them. I would just reach out to them and be like, hey, this is what I am, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, how can I kind of improve? And to my surprise, like nobody was ever hesitant to help out. Like everyone extended a helping hand graciously, and I love that. And a lot of the people I realized that I reached out to were women. And I never really realized that until I was genuinely just lying down on my sofa one day, and I was just like, oh, what do I do? And I kind of was just questioning, why is there no like, and a lot of those women that I reached out to were in the States itself also. They weren't in India. So I was just kind of questioning. And the problem was that there would be a time difference. I couldn't kind of just, there was a delay in response time, etc. Right, of course. So I was just trying to figure out who could I reach out to who was in India, who was a woman, because I kind of felt more comfortable chatting up with someone who was in a similar kind of place as I was before. So that kind of triggered it. And I started Women in Design on Instagram. We started, and then I got Ashwini on board as well. And we've been kind of running it ever since. And what it's grown into is something that I don't think either of us expected. It just started off as something that was for us to kind of be able to find a community that we could kind of relate to. And yeah, it's been really interesting to see how many different women, how many different designers, how many different even guys there are like who design, and like it's been fun, like to have a community, have people that are similar to you. So yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I've been seeing some really great designers on the platform. So what's the main objective of creating this space, maybe, or what's the main objective, and like maybe why? What was your why when you were maybe kicking it off, or maybe realize a little late in the later process that what was the main objective behind maybe creating a space like this?
Initially it was a lot about building a community, but I think what it's grown to be is a space that you kind of can go learn from if you've got any questions. What I've seen a lot of is, people have really been open to also helping out anyone who is probably from a different discipline as well, or the similar discipline. What I love is the fact that it's kind of eliminated competition in a way, where essentially a team of designers that are kind of designing cohesively to bring India to a better level. And I think that's what now has become its why. And just to kind of make sure that we share people, you highlight people, you emphasize that, okay, these are cool people in India, Rohini is doing this, or Ashwini is doing that, or anything. So it's also been cool to see different disciplines, and it's not just one particular discipline of design. There's multiple different disciplines that we've highlighted. We've highlighted people from product, from transport, from a lot of illustrators, a lot of different artists also, who are primarily into art and not so design. But I mean, it's essentially about building a community, learning from each other, most importantly, and kind of highlighting and understanding each other's strengths and building upon our own weaknesses. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely love the website you have. Um,
Thank you.
I'll definitely drop the link in the description for others to see, to check. Uh, do you want to share about the process, how you built it, or maybe the someone who's trying to build a community, right?
Mhm.
How do you think one can start?
I think the first thing when you're kind of building a community is to remember that you're building it for the people. So essentially, anything and everything you put out, you do, you create, has to make sure that it should be of value to the public. There should be something that someone can come in, and then when they leave, they're going to be, I don't know, like gaining one, at least one thing out of it. It could be anything. It could be whatever your community is about. Personally, I've got no experiences building a community previously to women in design, but a lot of the things I learned were on the way, and a lot of the mistakes we made were teaching curves. Thankfully, no big mistakes, but like just understanding how to be more efficient. One thing that I love and I think has helped me in building a good community or building an efficient one was probably to be organized, because you're it's gonna take a lot of time.
Yeah,
But if you love it, it's not gonna seem like work, so that's the best part of it. But I think just go for it, don't be afraid, and even if you think it's like something small, it's gonna have some sort of impact. Like there are gonna be people who are gonna be wanting that, so don't be afraid of like, oh, what if this is not something that people would want to be a part of, even if it's like a community for, like, I don't know, if you love juice, there might be 1,000 other juice lovers.
yeah,
Go for it. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But, I love the line where you said that uh, when you love your work, you don't think that it's the work you're doing. Um, Moving to our other questions, that I've been seeing a lot of coding you've been sharing, the creative coding. What's the story behind? Because you know why I'm talking about this is that the coding is something that I've always wanted to try, but also it has intimidated me a lot, so much. So yeah, even on the other podcast the other day, I was talking to Sushant, and he also mentioned that this coding has been something which has intimidated him so much. He even has paid for courses where he wanted to learn creative coding. So, and I think you were I've seen pretty sick stuff from you. Uh, Talk us through that, and like what's the what was the reason of you to shifting from, maybe not maybe shifting, but expanding your skill sets from like core visuals to something which is very code oriented?
Firstly, thank you. It was a very scary journey. I had no idea where I was going, but yeah, it was really tough. I The reason why I started generative art or creative coding was because I felt myself really in the core of UI UX, and I was always constantly creating interfaces and websites. And I felt that it was a disadvantage to myself that I didn't know anything that was in motion, or it was a lot of the things that I would design were quite static, right? Or if you do it, it would be Premiere Pro or like After Effects. Um, but then that doesn't give you like freedom to really control things at the click of your thumb or something. Um, and I've always wanted to learn coding, creative coding. Like I've been wanting to do it for so long, but again, I was scared as well. And my sister is actually a computer science student, and she does dive into code a little bit here and there. So she really pushed me again, and she was like, go for it. It's not that tough. And I think she really helped me go through it, because I hate math. I did so much sign and cos in that. But it was tough, but it was also like, it was insane what I could create, even if it was just like your gradient changes with your mouse change, like shifting the X and Y coordinates. But like, to me, it felt like a huge accomplishment. So then what I was addicted to was kind of like outsmarting myself in my last assignment, and like just trying to keep building things that were cooler. And a lot of it does have to do with your own, I would say, imagination. So there wasn't I think I was chasing the freedom that could come without kind of being restricted to just static elements. So I really wanted to be able to create anything that my mind thought of. So that's why I kind of pursued code, and I'm still learning. I I still have a long time to go, but it's been fun. It's been very, I would say, crazy. Like you should go for it.
Yeah, I mean, have you
You
used
definitely should.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, did you get a chance to use it on your projects or something?
Yeah. So I think it helped me a lot because after that, like I could create interaction that I knew were possible, and then nobody could tell me, "No, no, madam, ye nahi hoega." So that was fun because I'd be like, no, no, I know it can be done,
Yeah.
I've used it. Or I think it was interesting to kind of be able to like really create these minute interactions that would be fun, because you definitely don't want to overwhelm a website with interactions, because then nobody's going to focus on the content. You've got to find that balance. So like to really find those like small little pieces that you could make fun in regularly, like 1080 by 1920 grid, or whatever like your screen size is. But like I
Yeah.
think that's what kind of made it fun, and I have actually been able to use it. I can't right now, they're still gonna be live, so once it's live, I'm excited to show you guys. But
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that you had constant motivation through your sister. Maybe, right? You definitely okay. Now I know that how maybe I can push myself to learn coding if I need to find that person who constantly pushes me. Maybe. So yeah, awesome, awesome, really good stuff. I've noticed that in your journey you had a lot of phases where you were constantly learning, and you also mentioned this in your profile, and we've also had a conversation about this. What maybe led you to become a constant learner and constantly maybe doing experiments? Because yeah, I mean, I can imagine that there's a lot of learning through these processes.
I think if you want the deep answer, it kind of stems back to like being a third culture kid, because I was constantly being pushed outside of my comfort zone. So that kind of, I maybe I find comfort in being uncomfortable. So in terms of learning things, if I find myself kind of being too similar for a certain amount of time, it kind of irks me, and I want to kind of change something. I know I would change the layout of my room every week because I need to change. So I think, but I think it really helps because now when I kind of see myself, my day-to-day life, I'm doing, for example, I'm doing packaging design one day, and then maybe I don't know something there. I'm kind of learning about it in a different discipline. And I think that's why I love this multidisciplinary approach in design as well, because something that you might learn in, say, art direction could help you in, I don't know, a different like photography, or whatever you learn in photography could help you
Yeah.
somewhere else. So I think that's been a motivating factor, because I don't want to be reliant on someone to do something for me. So I want to be able to make sure that I can do something, or at least know the basics of it, so I can kind of make sure that whatever I think of can be brought to life. So that kind of excites me a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, also, I think personally, being a designer, it also gives us a lot of gives a big approach to kind of learn new things and constantly learn new things. Even I love doing a lot of courses and like constantly trying different things around 3D, 2D. So yeah, definitely inspiring, Dhruti. In the whole process, as you mentioned that you one day you're working around packaging design, other day you're moving to maybe UI UX. What's the what do you enjoy most about design, or maybe what process you enjoy the most?
um Probably the thing that I enjoy the most is probably common amongst all, is the fact that you start off really lost, because there's so many things that you have to kind of be mindful of. And I think it's the journey that's so exciting, because you're really like kind of blindly going about things, or like not blindly, but you're like, you still don't know what the final outcome is going to be, right? So you're trying to find your way, and then in the end you really go for it, and you create something that was probably not what you had thought of at the start as well, or was exactly what you thought of at the start. So I think that's what excites me the most, is probably like just if you're talking about packaging design, is looking at like different materials, putting things together, all of those things. Or even if you're looking at product design, where you do again have different materials, you're putting something together. Is I think it's just the art of making that really excites me throughout all of these.
Yeah, it's a great approach to. I mean, when you see something which is taking shape, it always inspires you to kind of do more of it.
Mhm.
What's next? What's coming up? Where you want kind of shaping your career towards, or the kind of skill set you're polishing at the moment? What kind? How do you want to kind of move forward from where you are today in terms of maybe skill
I
sets, or on a personal level?
I definitely do want to do a lot more of coding. So that's something that's definitely been on my checklist for 2022. Because one thing that I kind of keep kind of reminding myself is to innovate, not iterate. And I think that's also been a pushing factor for me to kind of make sure to constantly educate myself. So I'm not doing the same thing. I want to kind of try to do something new. So that way, I think coding is definitely something on my checklist for 2022. Um, Hopefully have in-person events for women in design if things are not so hectic outside. And yeah, I've got a lot of projects in the backlog. I've really got to put them all outside. But yeah, so I think it's going to be just a lot more creative this year.
Yeah. You also mentioned about this Mozilla event you are speaking at. It's actually tomorrow, right? If I'm not getting
Yeah,
it
tomorrow.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think by the time this podcast will be up, it was all already be done. So what are you gonna talk about, if you are maybe allowed to talk about?
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually with a co-facilitator. Her name is Nog, and we're going to be talking about data decolonialism, where we kind of want to learn from the community. So it's going to be a very open and interactive session. We want to learn about like what are practices that people can think of, or also kind of in the process maybe make people realize that data that they do use online, or data that is there presently online, how is it being used, who is it being used by. So I think that comes from being a designer. You've got to keep questioning yourself, and a lot of these things kind of happen in the background. Or maybe like one thing that I love from our workshop I'm going to share here is that data, like I'd actually attended also a conference in Bangalore a couple of years back, and this line stuck with me where they said data is a new oil. So it is
Yeah.
true, because essentially you're giving up your privacy to be accepted into society. Like you just click terms and conditions, okay, done. just for the sake to kind of move on, right? And I think it's just about building awareness in terms of that. And we're not professionals in this, but we do want to kind of just co-facilitate a session around learning decolonial practices from the community. And also there are a lot more data colonialism workshops, like AI workshops on the same day. So you guys can really you definitely can. I'm not sure about anyone listening, but yeah, like you can definitely like sign up for a lot more. I think they're pretty chill. Yep.
Awesome. Sweet. So, what's and again, what's next for women in design? I also we had a conversation about that you maybe wanted to start a podcast, or with women in design, and definitely that's a very exciting thing for me. A lot of times I see a lot of guests on your platform, which I really admire. So yeah, what's next with the woman design, and how you maybe want to sculpt it for where it's going at the moment?
Mhm. Yeah. So me and Ashwini have had starting a podcast on a list for so long. We've actually got we never thought about it until people started asking us if we have a podcast. And we were like, okay, maybe this would be a great kind of platform to really help translate what we're trying to get from the features or from the community, and then kind of give it back to the community. So that was one thing that's been on our to-do list. Not gonna lie, the whole of 2021, but it was crazy chaotic, so it's definitely in 2022. And I think one thing that we're hopefully going to look forward to this year is in-person events, if things kind of chill down a little, and really like convert it from just being a digital platform to a physical one, hopefully. So yeah.
And
That's it.
how are you planning to do it when you mentioned that moving from digital to physical?
We've got a lot of ideas, but the main one right now would be to keep having like in-person workshops or in-person like events where you can actually like say, we've got a feature who's in Mumbai, and at least the Mumbai folks can come out, can learn from the feature, right? Like, I think there's a lot of things to be learned from someone, no matter who they are. So like, if you meet them in person, I think the connection is a lot more in depth than it is online, because you're essentially just sitting behind a screen. You don't want to just kind of turn your camera off and just speak on your mic and not have that human connection. So with physical events, I think it can really help us like become a stronger community. Actually got those connections you've got will definitely be a starting point to that, and then I think we can see where we go from there. A lot of things have been really spontaneous.
Yeah.
I think we thrive on that, so that's cool.
Yep, I think I think in our last conversation we've talked about maybe you should have a design festival, or something of that sort.
Yes.
That'll be
Yeah,
definitely interesting.
we've planned it, but we'll see when it happens.
Yeah, I'm really already pretty stoked about it. Yeah, I mean, moving on to the end of our podcast. What do you think are the important traits of being a designer, of being a creative in 2022?
Nice. I think a lot of things have changed from 2021, so 2022 needs a refresh. One thing that I've kind of felt that have helped me, and I would like to see a lot more of in the community as well, or in just the world in general, is definitely being a lot more curious. Keep questioning why things are the way they are, because a lot of things that I've learned, even from women design, was from questioning things that probably would have been overlooked. Even if you're just designing, I don't know, like a bot or something, like question why something's the way it is. I think it'll really help you lead to an innovative approach. Definitely being ever changing and dynamic, in terms of not your style, but your outlook or your skill set and stuff. And I think everyone already is, but it never helps to like you can never be too adventurous and courageous in terms of not being afraid to start something new or take a different approach. Like even if say your style is something that is so different, there's always going to be scope for that. So I think that's cool. Like never be afraid of doing something new or different. So
Yeah, really, yeah. I think I totally agree with whatever you said, and surely apply on myself as well.
no, you're quite advanced, anyways.
No, I'm still learning, man. I'm still on a learning phase where I'm figuring out things every single day. So yeah, I mean, it's uh, awesome, Dhruti. I think thanks for being on the podcast. And I know it's been a couple of months that we've been trying to make this work. So yeah, thanks again for being on the podcast. And I think you've given us a lot of pointers to think about. Yeah, I hope to see you soon, Dhruti.
Thank you. It was also fun to be on the other side. Usually I'm kind of
Yeah,
asking the questions for women in design. So I get to see what the other side looks like.
that's awesome, right? That's awesome, right? I mean, look, I'm also looking forward to a lot of things which are coming up, and definitely can maybe get you on a call where you can help me build my website, maybe, because I definitely loved your website, to be honest.
Thank you.
So awesome, Dhruti. I see you on the other side. You have a
Yes,
good
for sure.
Sunday.
Thank you. You as well.